Okay. Anyways, I'm going to be reading my 4 superhero stories I made of my original superhero universe. Okay, Mom?
Yeah, I'll be sitting here.
Okay. Next time we do something. Anyways, we have Nightwolf number 0. Jackson City, S-O-N. That was the name on every street sign, every government building, every map, every official document. But nobody called it Jackson City anymore. The civilians had given it another name, Jackson, S-I-N, City. Not because the city had officially changed its name, but because crime had changed the way people saw it. The streets were filled with gangs, organized criminals, corrupt businessmen, crooked cops, drug dealers, thieves, and murderers. At night, people locked their doors, pulled their curtains shut, and prayed they wouldn't hear gunshots outside. The police tried to keep control, but Jackson City was becoming a city where the criminals were starting to believe they owned the streets. Tonight, however, someone was watching them. I'll be right back. Okay, here we are. Tonight, however, someone was watching them on top of a rooftop across the street from Romano's Tronarina. A man stood completely still. He was dressed from head to toe in an armored black suit. Oh yeah, before I continue, some of these are just introductions to stuff, so if you hear the next stories that they appear in, it may not follow fully what happened, but some will. Like this one. Anyway, he was dressed from head to toe in an armored black suit. The armor was designed to resemble the body of a wolf. The shoulders were reinforced. The chest was covered in layered black armor, and the gloves had sharp claw-like designs built into them. A black armored cowl, C-O-W-L, you know, like what Batman has, covered his head, shaped like the head of a wolf, with 2 pointed ears rising from the top. The most notable part of the suit was his eyes. They glowed green. Thin green lines ran across parts of his armor, glowing faintly in the darkness. The civilians didn't know his real name. The police didn't know his real name. The criminals certainly didn't know his real name. They only knew what the newspapers had started calling him, Nightwolf. Nightwolf stood on the top stood at the edge of the building and looked down at Ramona's what the fuck is this again? Trattoria. I don't know if I made up a new word or not. I was just trying to think of restaurant shit. Ramona's Trattoria. Oh, it's like totally, and then pizza. Okay, I got it. Anyways, from the outside, it looked like an ordinary Italian restaurant. Warm lights shone through the windows. People sat at the tables eating pasta, pizza, and steak. Okay. Waiters walked between the tables carrying plates. Families laughed, couples talked, but Nightwolf knew what the restaurant really was. A meeting place, a place where the members of the Romano crime family could conduct business without attracting too much attention. I think they're attracting attention by having a name after them. Don't you, Mom? Mm-hmm. Anyways. Nightwolf raised his right hand. A small device built into his glove activated. A tiny green light appeared. He looked through the lenses of his helmet. The restaurant's walls became outlined by the suit's scanning system. He could see heat signatures. 27 people inside, most of them civilians, but 6 of them were armed. Nightwolf zoomed in. One man had a pistol hidden underneath his jacket. Another had a handgun tucked into his waistband. The third had a knife. Nightwolf quietly said to himself, Romanos. He had been watching the restaurant for almost 3 hours. He wasn't ready to go inside, not yet. He was trying to figure out who was meeting whom. His helmet suddenly beeped. Nightwolf looked down. A small display appeared inside his helmet. Police communications active. Nightwolf has hacked into the Jackson City Police Department communications network. He didn't just listen to the police, he listened to everything. Police dispatch, 911 calls, patrol officers, emergency services. Nightwolf had built a system into his helmet that allowed him to monitor police communications from anywhere in the city. A voice suddenly came through. All units, we have a robbery in progress. Nightwolf turned his head. The police dispatcher continued. Jackson City gas located on West Jackson Avenue. Multiple suspects, possible weapons. As you can see, Mom, this is probably not going to be that much of an action story, since there's a gas station that's getting fucked up. It might be, though. I don't remember. Nightwolf looked across the city. The robbery was several blocks away. He glanced at Ramono's Torterina. Torterina? I'm gonna have to fucking find a different restaurant, probably. Or not, because this is gonna be so hard for me to remember how it's pronounced. Anyways, then back towards the direction of the gas station. He couldn't be in two places at once, but he could remember Ramono's. He touched the side of his helmet, marked location, the suit beeped. He said, mark location. So it's probably gonna not stick, who knows. So this takes place in the future, and there's other stories I made. I'm gonna make it take place in the past. Anyways, location marked. Nightwolf stepped away from the edge of the building. He walked toward the other side of the rooftop. A black motorcycle sat waiting for him. It was a AMC motorcycle that had been heavily modified. The bike was almost completely black. Its engine has been rebuilt. The tires were reinforced. The frame had been modified. Green lines ran along the sides of the along the sides of the motorcycle, matching the lines on Nightwolf's armor. Nightwolf called it the Wolf Cycle. He climbed onto the motorcycle. The engine roared to life. Nightwolf pulled down the visor of his helmet. The green eyes on his mask became brighter. Then he accelerated. The Wolf Cycle shot across the rooftop. How the fuck? I don't know how the fuck. Don't ask me how the fuck he got a motorcycle on the rooftop. I didn't think that far. Okay? So, do you have any criticisms yet?
No, you're criticizing yourself, so I don't have to.
Oh, okay. You were going. What were you about to say? How the fuck did he get a motorcycle on a rooftop?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I didn't think that far. And I'm probably not going to fully keep this stuff. I just wanted to make introduction stories for the characters. At least for Nightwolf. There are probably two I will keep. The way that I originally wrote them, which are the next two. Anyways, Nightwolf reached the edge. The motorcycle launched off the building, and for a moment, Nightwolf and the Wolf Cycle were completely airborne. Then the motorcycle landed on the roof of the building across the street. Nightwolf didn't slow down. He raced across the rooftop. The Wolf Cycle jumped another gap, then another. He was moving across the rooftops of Jackson City. Below him, people walked along the sidewalks. Cars drove through intersections. Police sirens echoed somewhere in the distance. Nightwolf followed the police communications. Suspects are still inside. How many? At least 5. Any hostages? Unknown. Nightwolf accelerated. Come on, he muttered. The Wolf Cycle dropped from a rooftop onto a lower street. Nightwolf turned sharply. The motorcycle sped through an alley. He passed a dumpster, then another. He emerged into Jackson Avenue. Jackson City gas was ahead. Several police cars were approaching from the opposite direction. Nightwolf saw the flashing lights. He immediately turned down another alley. The police cars passed him. Nightwolf stopped the Wolf Cycle behind the gas station. He killed the engine. Silence. He climbed off the motorcycle. He then looked around the corner. Jackson City Gas had been robbed. The front windows were shattered. A clerk was lying on the floor behind the counter. 3 criminals were inside the store. 2 were standing near the register. 1 was holding a shotgun. Another criminal was loading money into a duffel bag. The 5th suspect stood near the door. Nightwolf listened, come on, to the criminals, which they say, come on, get the money, we gotta go. Where's the safe? I told you, it's in the back. It's in the back.
Good for it.
Good, yeah. The man with the shotgun pointing it at the clerk. Open it. The clerk was shaking. I don't have the combination. The criminal slammed the shotgun onto the counter. Then figure it out. How? Okay. Never mind. Anyways. Nightwolf entered the gas station. Nobody noticed him. He moved silently behind the man guarding the door. There's 5 of them, and they're... Yeah, I did write these criminals kind of stupid. So there's 5 of them, and only 1 of them is guarding the door. The criminal suddenly heard something. He turned. Nightwolf grabbed him by the throat. The criminal's eyes widened. What the? Nightwolf threw him across the room. The man crashed into a shelf. What was that? The man with the shotgun turned around. Nightwolf was standing in the middle of the store. The green eyes of his helmet stared directly at them. One of the criminals whispered, "What the hell are you?" Nightwolf didn't answer. The man with the shotgun raised his weapon. Nightwolf moved. The shotgun fired. So where was I? Oh yeah. The shotgun fired. Nightwolf dropped to the ground. The bullet went over his head. He rose forward. He slammed his fist into the man's stomach. The criminal doubled over. Nightwolf grabbed him by the jacket and threw him across. Not across. I thought I was going to say across the floor again. But no. Threw him through the front door. The glass shattered as the criminal landed outside. The second criminal pulled a handgun. Nightwolf saw him reach for it. He grabbed a metal display rack and pushed it towards himself. The gun fired. The bullet slammed into the metal. Nightwolf threw the rack aside. He charged. The criminal fired again. Nightwolf grabbed his wrist. The criminal tried to pull away. Nightwolf twisted his arm. The gun dropped. Nightwolf kicked it across the floor. Then he punched the criminal. The man fell unconscious. The last criminal ran towards the back. Nightwolf chased him. The criminal opened the door to the storage room. He slammed it behind him. Nightwolf kicked it open. The criminal was already climbing through a window. Nightwolf grabbed his ankle. No!
I'll be back.
Okay.
Oh, we're almost done.
With this story, I believe.
No, it's just boring.
No! Nightwolf pulled him back inside. The criminal fell onto the floor. He looked up. Nightwolf stood over him. Please! Nightwolf grabbed the man's shirt. Where's the rest of your crew? What? The people you work for. I don't know what you're talking about. Nightwolf tightened his grip. The criminal became nervous. Okay. We work for somebody named Viper. Nightwolf paused. Who is Viper? I don't know. Where do I find? I don't know. Nightwolf stared at him. The criminal swallowed. I swear. Sirens getting closer. Nightwolf released him. The criminal looked confused. You aren't going to kill me? Nightwolf turned away. I'm not a murderer. The police arrived seconds later. The officers rushed into the gas station. By the time they entered the back room, Nightwolf was gone. Outside, the wolf cycle roared to life. Nightwolf accelerated into the night. One officer ran outside. He looked down the street. Nothing. Only the fading sound of a motorcycle. The officer looked back at his partner. Was that him? Who? The Nightwolf. His partner looked toward the darkness. I don't know. Meanwhile, Nightwolf continued riding through Jackson City. He looked at the city around him, the skyscrapers, the apartment buildings, the streets, the neighborhoods, the people. Jackson City had everything: money, power, poverty, crime, corruption, and secrets. Nightwolf knew he couldn't save the entire city in one night, but he could save one person, then another, and maybe someday Jackson City wouldn't be called Jackson City anymore. The wolf cycle disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, sunlight fled Jackson City. The city looked completely different during the day. People walked to work, children went to school, cars filled the streets, businesses opened. News reporters stood outside Jackson City gasped. The robbery from the previous night was already becoming the biggest story of the morning. A reporter stood in front of the gas station late night. 5 armed criminals attempted to rob Jackson City gas. Police say the suspects were stopped by an unidentified vigilante known as Nightwolf. Oh, it's a woman. Fuck. I just put reporter. Fuck.
Last night, 5 criminals attempted to rob Jackson City gas. The police say the suspects were stopped by an unidentified vigilante known as Nightwolf.
Yeah, I know I don't have a good woman voice. Don't you judge me over here, Miss Judgy look. Anyways, behind her, officers were starting to investigate the scene. The reporter continued.
Police have not confirmed the identity of Nightwolf, nor have they confirmed exactly how he entered the building.
Across town, a man sat at a restaurant table watching the news on a television. He was wearing an expensive black suit. His hair was neatly styled. He looked calm, confident, young. His name was Max Jackson. Max Jackson was a billionaire. He was the owner of Jackson Industries, one of the largest companies in the city. To most people, Max Jackson was simply a wealthy businessman. But there was more to him than that. Max took a sip of his coffee. The television continued.
Authorities are asking anyone with information about Nightwolf to contact the police.
Max smiled slightly. The woman sitting across from him noticed. What? Max looked at her. Nothing. She smiled. You're smiling. I am? Yes. Max laughed. Maybe I'm having a good morning. The woman's name was Juliana Mercer. Everyone who knew her called her Julie. She looked at the television. So what do you think about this Nightwolf? Max raised an eyebrow. What do I think? Yeah. I think he's reckless. Julie laughed. Really? Jumping around rooftops on a motorcycle, fighting armed criminals. Sounds reckless to me. Maybe he's trying to help. Maybe. Julie looked at him. You don't sound convinced. Max took another sip of his coffee. I think people like that can make things worse. Julie smiled. Interesting. What? You sound like you're really trying hard to convince me. Max laughed. Maybe I am. Julie leaned back. So what would you do if you were Nightwolf? Max looked out the window. For a moment, his expression changed. He looked at Jackson City, the same city he had spent years studying. The same city he had watched become more dangerous. The same city he had decided he couldn't ignore anymore. He then looked back at Julie. I make sure I didn't get caught. Julie laughed. That's your big plan, pretty much. Their waiter arrived. Are you two ready to order? Julie looked at Max. I'm ready. Max smiled. Me too. They ordered breakfast. For the next hour, Max Jackson looked like a ordinary billionaire enjoying a date with Juliana Mercer. They talked. They laughed. They joked. Nobody looking at them would suspect anything, but beneath the table, Max's phone vibrated. He looked down. A message appeared. Police communications, new incident. Max's expression immediately became serious. He opened the message. A robbery has been reported, then another. Max locked his phone. Julie noticed. Everything okay? Max smiled. Yes. You sure? Yeah, just work. Julie nodded. You're always working. Max laughed. Occasional hazard. He looked out the window again. Jackson City, his city, the city that has become Jackson City. He knew the police couldn't handle everything. He knew the criminals were organized. He knew that He knew there were people sitting in expensive offices who controlled criminals from the shadow. He knew Ramon's torteria was only one piece of something much bigger. He knew that last night wasn't an isolated incident. It was only the beginning. Julie reached across the table. Max, he looked at her. Yeah? You see distracted. Max smiled. I'm fine. Julie smiled back. Good. Max looked at her. Then he looked toward the city. Somewhere out there, people needed help. And tonight, Nightwolf would answer the call. Later that afternoon, Max returned to Jackson Industries. He entered his private office. The doors closed behind him. The smile disappeared from his face. Max walked toward his desk. He pressed his hand behind a hidden scanner. A green light appeared. A section on the wall opened. Max stepped inside. The elevator descended. Far below Jackson Industries was a hidden underground facility. The lights turned on one by one. The warp cycle sat in the center of the room. Computer screens surrounded its maps of Jackson City. Maps of Jackson City covered the walls. Police communications were displayed across multiple monitors. Files were scattered across a large table. Ramono crime family, Jackson City gas robbery, Viper, Nightwolf. Max removed his suit jacket. He looked at the warp cycle. Then he looked at the black armored suit standing inside a glass display, the Nightwolf suit. Max walked toward it. He placed his hand against the glass. The green eyes of the helmet stared back at him. Max smiled. Let's see what tonight brings. The lights in the room dimmed. The green lines on the Nightwolf suit illuminated. Illuminated. And somewhere above them, Jackson City continued to live its ordinary life. But where darkness falls, the criminals would look towards the rooftops. They would hear a motorcycle engine. They would see two glowing green eyes in the darkness. They would know that the night belonged to someone else now. Nightwolf was coming. Stay tuned to check out Nightwolf #1 to find out the origins of Nightwolf. That's the end of that story. How was it, Mom? My next story. Changeling #0. Mars was dying. I want to get me a drink first, though. #1. Anyway, Changeling #0. Mars was dying. Not slowly. Not peacefully. It was dying violently. Across the red planet, cities were collapsing beneath enormous clouds of dust. The oceans that had once existed were gone. The atmosphere was becoming thinner. The land itself was beginning to crack. For generations, the people of Mars had watched their world deteriorate. There were two major species on Mars, the Green Martians and the Red Martians. The Green Martians had spent centuries trying to preserve their civilization. The Red Martians wanted something else. Power, war, destruction. One of the most dangerous beings on the planet was someone Changeling once called his brother. His brother was neither completely Green Martian nor completely Red Martian. He was a half-breed. Half green, half red. The green side gave him incredible abilities. The red side gave him an obsession with destruction. He began destroying Mars from within. Cities fell, governments collapsed, entire populations disappeared. So, genocide. I believe that's what that's called. Changeling watched his homeworld die. He watched his people lose everything. He watched his own family become responsible for the destruction of the planet. And eventually, Changeling made a decision. He would leave. Not because he wanted to abandon his people, because he believed there was no other choice. Changeling escaped Mars aboard a small spacecraft. He wasn't alone at first. There were others with him. The remaining survivors of his world had managed to escape before Mars became completely uninhabitable. They launched their ships into space. Changeling watched Mars disappear behind him. He looked through the window. His home, his childhood, his family, everything he has ever known, gone. His brother had destroyed it. Changeling closed his eyes. I should have stopped you. The spacecraft traveled through space. Then something went wrong. The engines failed. Warning lights began flashing. Changeling rushed towards the controls. No. The ship shook violently. He grabbed the controls. Come on. The ship began falling toward a blue planet, Earth. Changeling tried to regain control. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere. Flames surrounded the aircraft. Changeling looked through the window shield. A city appeared below him. A massive city. Jackson City. Changeling tried everything he could to slow the ship down. Nothing worked. The spaceship crashed. It tore through several trees before slamming into the ground outside Jackson City. The impact sent debris flying in every direction. Smoke rose from the wreckage. Changeling crawled out. He looked around. He was alive, but his spacecraft wasn't. Changeling looked toward the city. He had never seen anything like it before. Buildings stretched into the sky. Cars traveled along the roads. Lights covered the streets. Humans walked everywhere. Changeling slowly approached the city. He had no idea what to do. He needed a name. He needed an identity. He needed to understand Earth. He eventually found an abandoned building where he could hide. There, he would discover human documents. One of the names caught his attention. John Johnson. Changeling looked at the name. John Johnson. He smiled. That will work. From that day forward, Changeling became John Johnson. He studied humanity. He learned their language, learned their laws, learned their history. And eventually, he discovered something he never expected. Humans needed detectives. Changeling had the ability that made him extremely good at solving mysteries. He could change his appearance. He could alter his body. He could imitate other people. He could read minds. He could pose incredible strength. He could fly. He could become nearly invisible. He could see things ordinary humans couldn't. So John Johnson became a detective. He joined the Jackson City Police Department as a private investigator who occasionally worked alongside law enforcement. Nobody knew he was an alien. To everyone, John Johnson was just an unusual, talented detective. Then came the case that changed everything. Several people had disappeared throughout Jackson City. The disappearances seemed random, but John noticed something. Every missing person had recently visited the same building, an old church. Can you guess why people are disappearing?
Because they're getting sucked into space?
No. That has to do with an old church.
Because they're going to heaven?
I don't fucking know. About that, I don't think that's it. You'll find out though. Anyways, John visited the location. The church looked abandoned, but John could hear voices inside. He entered. A group of people were gathered around a strange symbol painted on the floor.
They were caught.
A man stood in the center. Tonight, the man said, we will open the door. John watched from the shadows. The cult members began chanting. John studied the symbol. It wasn't human. He recognized it. It was Martian. John's eyes widened. Where did you get that? Everyone turned. The cult leader smiled. You. John stepped forward. What do you know about Mars? The cult leader laughed. We know your world is dying. John froze. The cult leader continued. And we know you came here. John's face, his disguise began disappearing. His skin turned green. His eyes changed. His body transformed. The cult members screamed. The cult leader smiled. Changeling. John stared at him. How do you know that name? The cult leader raised his hand. Because we've been waiting for you. The cult attacked. John fought back. He changed his arms into massive blades. He knocked several cultists across the room. Another attacked him from behind. John turned invincible. The cultists swung at nothing. John reappeared behind him. He grabbed him and threw him across the room. The cult leader pulled out a strange weapon. John recognized it. Martian technology. Where did you get that? The cult leader fired. John was struck. He fell to the floor. The weapon weakened his powers. He tried to stand. He couldn't. The cult leader approached him. You abandoned your people. John looked up. My people are dead. No, the cult leader smiled. Not all of them. John's eyes widened. What did you say? The cult leader raised the weapon again. Before he could fire, the police sirens could be heard outside. The cult members panicked. Police! The building was surrounded. John tried to move, but he was too weak. The police stormed inside. The cult members were arrested. But John wasn't rescued. Instead, several men in black suits entered. Can you guess who that is?
The Men in Black.
No. It's a Pacific group. That's real.
The Men in Black, they are real.
I mean, they go by the Men in Black, but they have a name.
The CIA Alien Task Force.
No. A real name here in the real world. Not the CIA.
The FBI.
Yes. FBI agents. One of them looked at John Johnson. John said nothing. The agent looked at the others. We have him. John tried to transform. Nothing happened. The FBI agent approached him. You're not John Johnson. John stared at him. The agent smiled. We know what you are. John was placed in handcuffs. He was taken outside. News helicopters flew overhead. Police officers watched. Nobody understood what was happening. John looked toward the sky. He knew something had gone terribly wrong. He had spent years hiding. He had tried to become human. He had tried to help the people of Jackson City, but now the government knew his secret. As the FBI vehicle drove away, John looked through the window. Jackson City disappeared behind him. He whispered, I was trying to help. The FBI agent sitting across from him looked at him. That's what we're going to find out. John looked at the agent. Who are you? The agent didn't answer. John looked down at his hands for the first time since arriving on Earth. He was afraid. Not because of the FBI, not because of humanity, but because the cult leader's words kept repeating in his mind. Not all of them. Your people aren't all dead. John looked out the window. Somewhere beyond Earth, something might still be alive. Something from Mars. Something connected to his brother. And if his brother had survived, John knew the destruction of Mars might not have been the end. It might have only been the beginning. The FBI vehicles disappeared into the night, and the mystery of Changeling has just begun. Stay tuned to check out Changeling #1 to find out what the FBI plans to do with John Johnson and what really happened to the survivors of Mars. And that's not even the next story. Because the next story is Willpower #0. And this one should be a short story. Okay. Anyways, though, before we continue, Nightwolf was inspired kind of by Batman and Spider-Man. Changeling is my Martian Manhunter type character, and Willpower goes into my Green Lantern type characters, the Green Torches. So yeah, and also please, if you watch this video, let me know your opinions on the stories and characters in the comments below, and if I should do more videos of me reading myself instead of using AI voices to read stories. Also, please let me know down in the comments below if you had any original superhero ideas for yourself. Oh, she's coming back now, my mom is. Says I'm reading them to her, so I'm not only reading them to myself. She has to throw away her garbage first.
Yeah, and you need to take the garbage out.
I will.
It's about to overflow.
Okay. Who cares? Anyways, Willpower Number 0, far beyond Earth, far beyond the moon, far beyond the planets and stars that humanity could see with the naked eye. There was something that couldn't be measured by science. Something that didn't belong to one person. Something that existed inside every living being. Willpower. Everything in the universe, everywhere in the universe, people had it. A mother refusing to give up on her child. A soldier continuing to fight for everything. Not for everything. When everything seemed hopeless, a scientist working for years to solve a problem everyone else believed was impossible. A child getting back up after falling down. Willpower existed everywhere, even in the darkest corners of space. But sometimes someone possessed more willpower than anyone else, and when that happened, something extraordinary could happen. Far from Earth, an ancient green energy floated through space. It wasn't a star. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a living creature. It was willpower itself. For millions of years, the energy has traveled through the universe. It searched for someone who could become its avatar. Someone whose will couldn't be broken. Someone who would never give up. The energy eventually found Earth. It surrounded the planet. It's passed through every city, every country, every ocean, every mountain, every person. Nobody noticed it, but they all felt it. A man stranded in the wilderness, found the strength to keep walking. A woman fighting for her life refused to surrender. A firefighter ran into a burning building and stood up after being knocked down. Humanity had willpower, but one person had something different. Somewhere on Earth, a person standing alone beneath the night sky. They looked towards the stars. They didn't know why they felt something calling them. Then the green energy descended. It surrounded them. The person looked down at their hands, green light covering their body. They heard a voice, not the voice of a person, a voice from within. Your will cannot be broken. The green energy entered their body. For one moment, the entire planet seemed to glow. Then, everything returned to normal. The person looked at their hands. They could feel something inside them. Power. Not the power of strength, the power of wealth, the power of fear. The power to keep going. The power to stand where everyone else fell. The power to fight against impossible odds. The power of will. They looked towards the stars. The green energy formed an armor around them. A green symbol appeared across their chest. The person became the first avatar of willpower, the green torch. The green torch wasn't simply a hero. The green torch was the living embodiment of willpower. As long as someone somewhere in the universe refused to give up, the green torch would exist. And so the legend began. Willpower. The power to never give up. So what was your opinions on the second one and this one? That had the space shit.
Good.
The space stuff was both good.
Yeah, we about done.
I have one more story after this.
Because you're starting to bore me.
Well, this is
I'm tired, I'll tell you the truth.
Well, Mom, the title of this is about something it's about somewhere you never went to because Paul said no. So you should know what that is.
Disney?
No. It's a place where you get education.
Oh, college.
Yeah. College days, number 1. I'm gonna probably use this series to just introduce teenage heroes or younger heroes. The future was different. Cities were bigger. Technology was more advanced. Superheroes weren't just stories anymore. They were real. Some protected cities, some worked with government, some operated alone, some tried to live normal lives. Ethan Cross was one of those people. At 22 years old, Ethan was a college student trying to survive his final years of school. He wasn't the most popular guy on campus, he wasn't the smartest, he wasn't the richest. And he definitely wasn't the strongest, at least that's what everyone thought. Ethan walked across campus carrying a backpack over one shoulder. He checked his phone. Late again. He looked at the clock on the building. He had 10 minutes before class. He started walking faster, then bumped into someone. His book fell. His books fell onto the sidewalk. Ethan looked up. As in...
Gomez Adams.
That's probably where I got the idea from. Oh, I kind of wanted like a Spanish sounding last name. Anyway, Ethan looked up. Brandon Gomez. Brandon was one of the biggest guys on campus. Can you guess where this is going, Mom? About Brandon being one of the biggest guys on campus?
Him being the jock and the girl liking him.
You got part of it right. And had made Ethan's life miserable for months. Brandon looked down at him. Watch where you're going, Cross. Oh God, is this still 2000s written? Ethan looked at his books. You walked into me. Brandon laughed, did I? His friends laughed with him. Ethan picked up his books. Brandon grabbed Ethan by the shoulder. What's the hurry? Ethan looked at him. Class? Brandon shoved him. Ethan barely moved. Brandon stared at him. Ethan stared back for a second. Ethan almost smiled because Brandon didn't know something. Ethan was much stronger than he looked. Ethan had discovered his strength years ago. He could lift things no normal person could lift. He healed from injuries extremely quickly, and sometimes time behaved strangely around him. But Ethan had never understood why. He kept his abilities a secret. There was only one person who knew, his brother, Eric Cross. Eric was also a student at the same college, and Eric had a secret of his own. He was a superhero, Web Strike. So to explain, Ethan has super strength, a healing factor, and time manipulation. And Eric is kind of like my Spider-Man character, as you can tell with the name Web Strike. Anyways, nobody on campus knew that the quiet student named Eric Cross was actually the masked hero who has been stopping crime throughout the city. Nobody except Ethan. Ethan looked at Brandon. Can you move? Brandon laughed. Make me. Ethan took a breath. He didn't want to fight. Not here, not now. He stepped around Brandon. Brandon grabbed his backpack. Ethan stopped. Let go. No. Ethan pulled. Brandon pulled back. Then Ethan accidentally used too much strength. Brandon threw backward. He landed on the grass. Everyone nearby stopped. Ethan stared at him. Brandon stared back. Ethan quickly picked up his backpack. Sorry. Then he ran. Later that day, Ethan met Eric in the college cafeteria. Eric sat across from him. You threw Brandon across the lawn. Ethan looked annoyed. I didn't mean to. Eric laughed. You got to learn how to control that strength. I know. Eric leaned closer. Did you have the time thing again? Ethan looked around. Not here. Eric nodded. The two brothers had been keeping secrets from everyone. Why do you hear my hand?
Because if I want to rock my chair, I'll rock it myself.
Okay.
I don't need help.
Ethan knew Eric was Web Strike. Eric knew Ethan had powers. But Ethan wasn't a hero. Not yet. That changed a few weeks later. Ethan was walking home from campus when something happened. A car crashed through an intersection. People screamed. The vehicle was heading directly towards a group of pedestrians. Ethan didn't think. He ran. Something around him suddenly slowed down. A bird stopped in midair. A piece of glass floated beside him. A person's hair moved slowly in the wind. Ethan stopped. What? He looked around. Time had almost stopped. Ethan ran towards the car. He grabbed the front of it, then he pushed. The car flew sideways. Time suddenly returned to normal. The vehicle crashed into an empty building. People screamed. Ethan stood in the middle of the street. His hands were shaking. He had saved them, but now he understood. Now he understood his powers wasn't just strength. He could manipulate time. That night, Ethan went to Eric's apartment. Eric opened the door. Ethan, I know what I can do. Eric looked at him. What? Ethan stepped aside. I can control time. Eric stared at him. You're serious? Ethan nodded. I stopped everything. Eric smiled. That's incredible. Ethan shook his head. No, it's dangerous. Eric closed the door, then learned to control it. Ethan looked at him. You learned. Eric smiled. I had a pretty good teacher. Ethan laughed. You mean getting punched in the face? Exactly. The brothers laughed, but neither knew what was coming. A few days later, Ethan found an old device in one of the college's science laboratories. It was experimental technology designed to measure temporal energy. Ethan touched it. The machine activated. The room filled with energy. Ethan screamed. Eric ran into the laboratory. Ethan. The machine exploded. A wave of energy passed through Ethan's body. He collapsed. Eric ran toward him. Ethan opened his eyes. Everything looked different. He could see time. Not just the present. He could see moments happening around him like invisible waves. Past, present, future. Ethan stood. What happened? Eric looked at him. I don't know. Ethan looked at the clock. The hands began spinning backwards, then forwards, then stopped. Ethan realized something. He could control it. He raised his hands. The clock moved backward. He lowered his hand. It moved forward. Ethan smiled. Not Ethan. Eric smiled. You need a name. Ethan looked at him. A name? If you're going to be a hero, if you're going to become a hero, Ethan thought about it. He looked at the clock. Then at the temporal energy surrounding his hands. Metronome. Ethan smiled. Metronome? Because everything moves to a rhythm. Eric nodded. I liked it. Ethan smiled. So what's your next patrol? Eric stood up. Webstrike has work tonight. Ethan laughed. You're never going to stop calling yourself that, are you? Nope. Ethan looked at his brother. 2 brothers, 2 heroes, 2 secrets, 1 college. An entire future waiting for them. Eric had become Webstrike. Now Ethan was becoming something new. Metronome. Neither brother knew just how important they would eventually become. Because in the future, heroes wouldn't just be protecting cities. They would be protecting the entire world. And sometimes the entire timeline. To be continued.